Salam alaikum, Sakpase, and welcome to another edition of Fontan From. I'm Sarah Onyango, your host, and today we are delighted to have with us in the studio Sekou Kaba. Sekou Kaba is an Olympic hurdler who recently returned from the 2016 Rio Olympic Games. Welcome to the show, Sekou.
Thank you for having me.
So, with a name like Sekou Kaba, you are of West African origin.
Correct.
Tell us about your journey to Canada.
Well, I was born and raised in Guinea-Conakry, which, as you say, is on the west coast of Africa. And I spent the first 10 years of my life there. At right around the age of 11, I moved to Michigan, Georgia, with my sisters, simply in hopes for a better education, better life, and to see what this big world has to offer, according to my family. And so we got to Michigan at the age of 11, and I kind of discovered sports there, the hurdles, which I do now. But I wasn't the greatest at it, you know, kind of just saw it, picked it up, and wanted to see what happens. And we stayed in Michigan until I was about 14. And then at 14, we moved to Georgia, in Snellville, Georgia. And spent a few years there as well. And again, we moved at the age of 17 and ended up here in Ottawa, where I reside to this day.
So you moved because of your parents' work, or?
So first move from Guinea to the U.S. was just for a better life, better education. Second move is hilarious because my mother simply felt it was too cold in Michigan, so right? And
But
we're,
she ended
and
up
we're
in
in Ottawa
Canada.
now. There you go. And so, yeah, we packed our bags from Michigan to Georgia. And from Georgia to Canada, my dad worked in the African government and often traveled to Ottawa. And so the family decided this would be the best place to be in order to see our dad more often, and it worked out pretty well.
That must have been hard moving to the United States as a French-speaking person, moving to the United States, not knowing any English.
Right.
How did you manage that? And you were 11.
I was 11. It was a culture shock. It was a culture shock. I spoke no English at all. I had to learn the English alphabet. And so it was quite the learning curve because I, at times, felt out of place. It was a culture shock. I didn't have any friends, and so times were tough. I got bullied, and yeah, it was, but you know what? It was, I call those my character building years because I truly believe some of the things that took place during those years are the reason why I'm the way I am today.
So hurdles, why not basketball or football, which is like typical sports that young African Americans engage in?
Right.
Why hurdles?
I don't know. I was known for having small jumping abilities as a kid. And so once I arrived in Michigan, there was a program called I think they call the activity program or whatever, or activity bus. And what this bus did was if you stay back after school and get your agenda signed by a teacher of someone of status, then you can take part in any activities at the school. You get on this bus and it drops you off right in front of your house. And so I automatically thought, why would I get on my usual bus after school, get dropped off in a place, and then walk 10 minutes home when I can stay at school, get on a bus that drops me off right in front of my house? So you can tell I was a bit of a lazy kid.
Right.
And so I, drank it right up. I was like, this is my thing. So I walked around the school just to see which activities I can take part in, and stumbled upon a track. Had never seen it, never heard of it. And so high schoolers were practicing, and I saw this guy just flying by, jumping over this thing, and I was like, that's what I want to do. And so I guess at that moment I became a bit crazy for hurdles. Yeah.
So can you explain to our viewers what this discipline entails?
Yeah. It entails a lot of craziness, for starters. But in my 110-meter hurdle race, there are 10 hurdles. Each hurdle is 42 inches high. And so from the blocks to the first hurdles, you take 8 powerful steps. By the first hurdle, you take off and you land. Once you land, you have 3 steps before you take off again. And you want those 3 steps to be as quick and fast and powerful as possible to prepare you for the next one. So yeah, from 1 to 10, you're giving it your all to see what you can get out of it. And by the finish line, I clock out at 13.43 seconds is my personal best.
And what is the world record?
World record is 12.80 set
so
by
you're
an
not
American.
that far off.
I'm not that far off. It's a sport of milliseconds. And so you do a lot of hard work to shave off the littlest of time.
And then there's 2 hurdle races.
Correct.
One is a longer distance.
There is.
Tell us
So
about that.
in the short sprints, you got the women's and men's. Women's are 100-meter hurdles. Men are 110-meter hurdles. And the longer distance is a 400 meters. And it's the same distance for both men and women. Yeah. And that one is another area code of crazy to do that.
Because you need endurance for that one.
My God, I've never dreamt of doing it. I tried it once, failed miserably.
Hard.
A lot of lactic acid by the last hurdle, and so it beat me up, and so I decided to never do it again. Yeah.
So when you started actually competing in hurdling, who were your role models? Like, who did you used to be excited to see on TV? I know in my time in the 70s, Edwin Moses was the hurling god for me when I was doing hurdles in high school. What about you?
When I started moving up in the hurdle world, the guys I looked up to were the Liu Zhang, he's a Chinese world champion, the Dayron Robles, former world record holder.
Yeah. Cuba?
Cuba,
Yes.
exactly.
The Cubans and the Dominicans.
They're quick. They're quick. And so I actually got to meet Liu Zhang last year in China at the World Championships.
Oh, wow.
And we got to say a few words, and he's a great guy. Sad that he had to hang it up early due to injuries, but yeah, he was definitely an inspiration for me. Yeah.
So since we're talking about international competition, can you tell our viewers what the challenges are competing, like going from local, high school, to provincial, national, and then to international? What are the challenges for you?
You just put it an awesome way, actually, because when I first arrived in Canada, I had to take it step by step. Local Ottawa boy, so I did all the small meets at Terry Fox and kind of slowly made a name for myself. And then from there, we went to OFSA, which is now province-wide. And so I won the OFSA championships in 2008. And then you have the national championships, which I also took part in. And then I realized that there is a bigger problem, because I am now the fastest hurdler in Canada, but I'm not a Canadian citizen.
Oh my goodness.
And so in 2008, I came across my first citizenship hurdle, literally. And that year there was, I think, the junior championships in Poland. And like I said, I just did it for the love. I had no clue what international competitions were or the selection criteria and process and whatnot, but I just ran because I loved it and I happened to be okay at it. Wasn't always that way, but I, just did what I love, which was hurdling. So 2008, I ran the fastest time at the Canadian Junior Championships, but I actually didn't get the medal because the championships is only for Canadian citizens.
Oh my goodness.
And so the guy who had the second fastest time, so second, third, and fourth fastest time were given 1, 2, 3 respectively.
Oh my.
And so then I realized, oh boy, this is gonna be fun. So from 2008 up until 2012, when I received my citizenship, I had to sit at home because nationals would be my cutoff. Because after nationals, you have international championships, which I couldn't take part in. So I had to sit at home those 4 years, literally watching the second place guy who's always behind me at other meets compete on the world stage. And so it was, for me, it's never never, I don't call it a bad experience, a bad year. I call it
Character
character
building.
building years. And so I built a lot of character in those years.
And the
And
day you got your citizenship.
yeah, I was a bundle of joy. It was 2 or 3 days before the Olympic trials in 2012 that I got my citizenship processed quickly because I had applied. My file was just sitting there until I managed to reach out to my MP at the time, Pierre Poilievre, who kind of assessed the case and, saw that the Olympics was a possibility. And so he put it in motion to see what he can do. And I got my citizenship right before the Olympic trials. Yeah, so that was big for me because I could finally breathe and just compete. Yeah.
For Canada.
For Canada.
And recently, you were actually the keynote speaker at a citizenship ceremony.
I
so
was. And
full circle.
It's amazing, amazing. I never put it into perspective until one of my friends did I put the picture online and he said, man, like I remember just 4 years ago, like we were chatting about the hardships of you getting citizenship. And now look at you, you're talking and inspiring new citizens.
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing what time and hard work can do, for sure.
So far, because your career is still young, I would
sure.
say.
Right.
What have been the highlights for you so far?
There's been so many highlights. The main one I would probably say the 2013 Francophone Games in Nice, France.
Yes.
I got to France, second international appearance, just to, let's see what we can do. And I was racing the 2005 world champion, who happens to be French. And so he's on home soil. And here I am, little Guinean boy who just became Canadian, just looking to show the world what I have. And so the gun went off and I never saw him in front of me. So
wow.
I brought home the gold for Canada.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
So that's a big one. Highlight. Another one was 2014. I broke Mark McCoy's
that's
record.
another icon.
Oh yeah, I broke Mark
Canadian
McCoy's
hurdling
record
icon.
in the 60-meter hurdles on
Yes.
the collegiate level.
Right.
I think that record stood for 30 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I've rewritten that history. So it's great.
So early in your career, already you're making history. So how do you keep yourself competitive at this level? What do you have to do to make sure the engine is running as it should?
Right, you have to grow by putting emphasis on your weaknesses. I mean, your strengths are your strengths, right? And so you can always polish them, but you work on your weaknesses. You can always grow, always grow. I mean, I think the moment you start to believe you're the best at anything in this world, that's when you actually start to be the worst. And so just have to keep level-headed and
be hungry.
That's it.
As well.
Constantly hungry. Constantly
And so
hungry.
what kind of diet, what kind of regimen, exercise regimen does a hurdler
So
have?
I believe in everything in moderation. And so as far as diet, I know what's good for me, I know what's bad for me. So I see food as energy. And so if I don't really need the energy, I don't eat it. Like I eat more on my training days than I would on a weekend, for example, especially during competition season, because you do need to be lean and mean. And so when the June, July, August hit, we're not really eating. We're simply eating for energy. That's it. That's it. And so all the eating us athletes do, I think, kind of happens now in the loading phase of training because we're all just starting back up. And so you have to eat a lot to kind of help the body regenerate.
What about workouts?
Workouts are long and strenuous. You're working on everything, your core strength, your mental capacity, like your everything, every single thing. Muscles, endurance, speed, all of it.
Because you have to have a lot of power in your legs.
That's it.
But you also have to have
Oh,
a
for sure.
core that's really
Nice and
steady
stiff.
that you can,
Exactly.
Right.
And so, because when you're at your best, everything's coming
Comes
together
together,
as
yeah.
one. So your body needs to be in sync, for sure. And so, it's quite the art. Yeah.
Um, so what do your parents think about this? Because most African parents, their dream really is for their son or daughter to become the doctor, the lawyer, uh, the world famous writer, or
Hmm.
something intellectual. It's always intellectual,
Of course.
never really a cultural figure or sports figure.
Right.
So what does your family think of what you do?
That is an awesome question. They've grown to kind of support
Mm-hmm.
my wishes and actually take time to look into what I'm doing and
Mm-hmm.
enjoy what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring my parents oftentimes to the speeches that I do or some of my competitions so they can actually see.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I find that kids will constantly, as you mentioned, African parents want this and this for their kids. The kids would go against what they're saying, but not really show them what they do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you can say, oh, I want to do this, this, and that instead of being a doctor like you want me, mom.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes, the reason why the parents don't really buy into it is because the kids don't really take the time to show them. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've found that really bringing my parents to these events and showing them videos of what I do, showing them that, hey, like you may not think this is a big deal, but like an entire auditorium of kids look up to me as
Mm-hmm.
I'm someone who's achieved so much in life
Mm-hmm.
when I really feel like this is my duty, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so they've definitely learned to appreciate the sport.
And to see that the sport, it's not just you running and
No,
jumping over
no,
hurdles.
it's not. There's
It's
so much more to
also
it.
the values,
There's so much more
the
to it.
hard work, and
Yeah.
everything that,
Yeah.
that goes along.
I really do not know where I would be without sports because it started with seeing that hurdle on the track in sixth grade,
Mm-hmm.
and it's built my character so much. I've went on to play football, went on to play basketball, and these are all character building sports. And I mean character building, you know, things to do in life. And so I'm not saying I wouldn't be Sekou Kaba without sports, but I'm just saying sports is a catalyst
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, to who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still important to go out and get your education, and because you
course.
don't want to just limit yourself to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what black
Mm-hmm.
people are known for, you know,
Yeah.
sports and
Sports,
music, and you
entertainment.
know, that's
Right.
not. Don't limit yourself to that.
Right.
I told myself I wanted to be a great athlete. I believed I could be a great athlete, and
Mm-hmm.
I worked hard to be one, and
Mm-hmm.
here I am today, still trying to reach new heights of athleticism.
And
So
what a lot of our audience may not know is that there are a lot of student athletes
exactly,
who train in the United States, especially
correct,
in Texas. A lot of our
right,
sprinters,
right.
Glenroy Gilbert,
Glenroy Gilbert went to LSU.
that's right,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Donovan Bailey
Oh
and
yeah,
other
oh yeah,
track stars
yeah,
who went to school
yeah,
as well as
yeah.
training.
It's important.
It
It's
is.
important because it
Mm-hmm.
helps with the balancing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you have so much on your plate.
Mm-hmm.
You have practice. You have a test coming up, and so you need to find that equilibrium. And you know, some days you will have to go 60-40,
Mm-hmm.
and the 60 goes with at whichever matters that week.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you may have a competition that will get you to another level of your sport. And so you settle for a B on that test instead of an A. And so, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So that's something else you have to.
Oh, yeah.
You spoke about children
Right.
and you talked about inspiring. So
Right.
let's talk about your anti-bullying
Yeah.
advocacy work.
Yeah.
How did that start?
You know what? I think it kind of just happened because I went a while without, you know, talking about my past, but with track and field it came up because I was, you know, making a name for myself. And so people were saying, "Hey, like what's your background? We'd love to hear what your story is." And so I said, "Oh, I kind of just said it and didn't make much of it because I just thought it was part of, you know, life. Everybody gets bullied and you get over it." But someone's like, "That's not okay. That's not okay. You're human. No one should make you feel less, you know?"
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, I kept on sharing more, and I decided and I realized that there are a lot of kids who go through this. And having lived in 3 different continents with bunch of kids. I can definitely say that kids are mean for the most part. And so more kids started approaching me and telling them about them being bullied and kind of confiding in me. And so I kind of did my best to help them out, make them feel comfortable, and let them know if I can get through this phase, so can you. Here's how I did it. Here's what you should do. And for me, and not just to bullying, every aspect of my life, I believe kindness is the key to everything. And so I simply just chose to be kind even to the bullies. And it paid off, because one of the stories that I share is that I was once I was at school once being bullied, and I had no clue how to go about it, because these guys would beat me up and I can't do anything. They're bigger than me. And so you have to be solutions focused. And so I decided, how do I get out of this? So I happened to see a bigger guy, a guy who's bigger than me, and I realized he was bigger than the bullies. Exactly. And so I saw him going through a tough time at school, and I was, kind of offered my hand, kind hand. Hey, do you need some sort of help? So I kind of helped him with what he was doing, and all of a sudden we became best friends. And I told him about the bullies, and he kind of talked them away from me. He's like, hey, this guy's not too bad, like, stay away from him. And I was never bullied again. So had I not been kind to that guy, who knows what would have happened. And so with all my speaking at schools that I've been doing lately, I highlight the Kaba keys to success. Kaba is my last name, and so the K stands for kindness. The A stands for asking for what you want in life. The B is for believing in your goals and yourself. And the A is for adjusting to life circumstances.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I kind of go on about that.
Are you planning to write a book based on this at some point?
You've asked. I don't like to lie. Definitely,
yes.
I will have a book in the making for sure.
Yes. And so do you partner with organizations when you do your anti-bullying advocacy?
Right now, I'm just all by myself, just literally looking to inspire as many people as I can. And it would be great to have some people on board to, really push this thing out, because I really believe I can make a difference, because I have been there and I've also overcome it. So it would be great to have some people on board to help get the word out, for sure.
So what kind of advice would you give to a young person who watched you, like I did? I watched your heats in Rio, in Brazil, and said, yeah, I want to be that guy when I'm old enough to start training to be like that guy. What advice would you offer to a would-be Sekou Kaba?
Yeah, this is going to be quite redundant, because I would tell them to follow the Kaba keys to success. Those keys have really gotten me where I am today. I was kind to as many people as I could, and I received a lot of opportunities because of it. When I felt I'd done everything I could to achieve my goals that didn't happen, I asked for help. When times were tough, I believed in myself and my goal, and all of a sudden my goal is attainable. And I did come across a lot of circumstances that I had to adjust to. When I just became Canadian, 2012, I went to represent Canada in Mexico for the first time. In Mexico, competition was over, time to go to Canada. Sekou's passport list. I lost my passport in Mexico. Here I am, happy to be Canadian, but now I'm technically no longer, because I don't have the thing that shows that I'm Canadian in Mexico. So you kind of have to just adjust. As I mentioned, solutions focused. I thought to book a ticket to the nearest Canadian embassy, which was in Mexico City. Spent 3 days there and got a travel document, traveled back home. So gotta think fast. So Kaba keys are major keys to success for me, and so that's what I would tell a young Sekou Kaba in the making. Yeah.
So to finish off, so you were in Rio?
I was in Rio.
How was that? Was that your first Olympics?
That was my first Olympics.
Because you weren't in London.
I was not in London. I just missed it.
You just missed that, yes.
Yeah.
So how was that, your
Rio,
first Olympics?
Rio was a blast.
Yeah.
It's just such a good time, such a good time. I had my buddies there, and they made it so much more memorable. I obviously didn't do as well as I'd hoped. I finished 28th overall.
Yeah, but look who you were running against.
This is true.
Right?
This is true.
Okay.
And so they say you're left with three things, you know, at the Olympics. You either have a medal, you have good memories, or you have bad memories. And so as soon as I hit that 10th hurdle and kind of buckled and lost my momentum, I knew I had to make a decision. You know, do you make this memorable, or do you just pout for the rest of the 10 days you're here? And so I decided to have a great time. So I went up to see my buddies, and they didn't give me a time of day to be down on myself. So it was a great experience for sure. One to remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what next?
What next? Well, I think I'm going to keep going to 2020. So we have 2017 World Championships, 2018 Commonwealth Games, 2019 World Championships again, and then boom,
I'm
Tokyo.
going to Tokyo to see you.
I will be there.
Some
Look
friends and I
forward
were going to Tokyo.
Look, let's make a deal to say hello in
Yes,
Tokyo
absolutely.
in 4 years.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very
Sekou
much.
Kaba,
Thank
for joining us today, and I hope that you've inspired some of our viewers. And thank you for watching Fonton From today. Do write us and tell us what you think of the show. We'd love to hear from you. And join us again for another edition of Fonton From right here on Rogers TV.